Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today's episode is a video and audio podcast. So if you wanted to watch us over on YouTube, you can at celestial_fit. We are connecting with a 38-year-old married mama of two from Seattle who works full-time as a business development director in the engineering and construction industry. Aside from her passion for cooking and baking, she used to be a cheerleader and started weightlifting in 2016. After 5 years of that, she decided to cross competing off her bucket list, which turned into much more than a bucket list item, since she went on to earn 4 overalls out of the 5 regional shows she competed in between 2021 and 2023. And then she went on to compete in her second national show this year, winning first in her Masters Nationals Open class and winning her pro card. Welcome to the show, Kelsie Woodhouse. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm so good, and I'm really excited to be here talking to you. I'm flattered, and this is very surreal. I mentioned to you before we started that your podcast has been the soundtrack to my cardio for a few years. So I'm so happy to be one of the guests now. This is awesome.
Yes, I'm so happy you're here, and thanks for saying that again, because I think there's other people who probably listen and hope to be on the podcast one day and listen to it like that too. And I'm like, it's open. I love talking to all athletes, and I think we can all learn from each other's stories. So you got to know, I got to ask you, is there anything you do or think about right before your heel hits the stage?
Yes, not on purpose, but it just so ends up being that immediately before any competition, I just get this very present kind of feeling of gratitude that I just become aware of how fortunate I am and that we as competitors are to participate in this sport. It is a very first world sport, and I just get really appreciative. It's kind of the culmination of weeks and weeks and weeks of hard work and dedication and availability, or accessibility to a gym, to the nutrition that you need, to coaching, to all of this stuff that it takes to make competing possible. The coming on to stage and presenting your physique is the culmination of all of that. And I just always get really appreciative, and I experience a ton of gratitude. I don't have any rituals other than probably I talk about it too much. I'm looking around going, are we still lucky to be here? Are we still lucky to be here? And it's very annoying, but yeah, that's usually what happens to me. I just become very appreciative.
I love that. I think that gratitude is so important in any journey, but especially like you said with this, it's a blessing that we get to do this, and we choose to put our bodies through this. We choose to nourish ourselves in a way, but not everybody has that choice, let alone has the choice to do it, to meet a particular criteria and to look among the best and earn a title that puts you among only 30,000 other people in the United States. That's pretty crazy when you think about it. So I love that you have such a heart of gratitude for this.
Yeah. I think about even on a global scale, I can go, oh, I'm out of pre-workout. Let me just order that on Amazon and have it here tomorrow and enable me to compete in this sport the way that I want to. And that's just, we're fortunate to be where we are doing what we're doing.
Yeah, 100%. And I appreciate that perspective. It's easy, I think, to lose sight of that perspective when you see so many people living this lifestyle, spending your time on Instagram, or you're at shows, or you're going show to show. It just becomes oh, I think this is normal, right? But in reality, it's not. It's a corner of the universe of which we exist in that, we found a lot of people like-minded to us, so we see it a lot, but it doesn't mean it's the norm for the world.
Yeah. Isn't that with everything? We gravitate towards people who we have experienced similarities with, because that's what you have something in common, or it's comfortable, or it's validating to your belief system. So I think that's with all things, but yeah, we find people who share something with us. I think that too, when I walk backstage before a competition and it's the sea of bikini, all people everywhere with their towels and blankets, and you walk into a room of strangers, but it's a very cool feeling to walk into a room of but maybe a couple of people that but mostly people you don't know, and think, gosh, I already know that we have a ton in common, because competing, it is not a light hobby. You're very committed to making, that work, because there's a lot of obstacles. It's not easy. There's barriers to doing it, and you have to be stubborn and dedicated. And so walking into a room of strangers, the baseline is like, we already have a ton in common. It's a really cool feeling.
Absolutely. And, otherwise day to day, sometimes it can feel lonely to some people or for some people, depending on what kind of environment or where you live. And things like going to a show or doing this podcast, for me anyways, has brought so much more of that connection. And it's nice to be able to show people, like, there's a lot of people out there who think like you or have made this work, and you can do that as well. And I actually think it'd be a great subject to transition to regarding your own lifestyle, because you are a working professional and a mom and a wife. So what does a normal day look like for you, maybe prep and improvement season, and how have you navigated that?
Yeah, I think the theme between both of those seasons, whether you're in prep or not, is planning and executing on your plan. There's a little tagline: plan the work and work the plan, because I could tell you when my workout window is every day for the next 14 days, because I have to schedule it in. And it's literally on an Outlook calendar. So I schedule my travel time to the gym. I know when I'm going to eat my pre-workout before I go to the gym. The theme is planning. And if it's important to you, you'll make it happen, right? We always hear people say that, but I think people who are maybe a little bit more haphazard in their day will end up struggling with finding the time, or something interrupts, or something, kind of comes along and takes precedent. But if you don't plan it in, it's definitely not going to happen. So I tend to just plan everything. So in prep, I I follow macros as long as I can until I'm about 4 weeks out from a show. And then I transition to a meal plan that my coach prescribes, which is really just to make sure that I'm incredibly consistent. If we need to make any tweaks, we know exactly what's going on. They're low inflammatory foods. So just in case, there's some small margin of impact from egg whites or something, we can deal with it, because we're just incredibly consistent. So, but I eat to a macro target the majority of my prep until the very end. I like to work out in the afternoons, just when food is low. But other than that, whether it's early prep or improvement season, my day starts at like 4:30 in the morning. I'll wake up, eat my pre-workout meal, go to the gym before the sun comes up. And I'm definitely a morning person, so that works for me. But also, if you knock it out, your day can't take it away from you later when it goes south, or things get busy, or you get a call from the school that you have to come pick up a barfing child or whatever. If you get it done early, it's that saying, like, make your bed in the morning, because then you'll accomplish something. It feels good. I get a super endorphin rush from it. So I'm a morning person. I prefer morning workouts, and I do that in improvement season, or when food is higher. But I'll switch it around to just when I need to, either because of my own availability or because that's when I'm going to get the best workout in. So
totally. I think that's a really key point right there. Like, when are you going to get your best workout in? Because there are some days where I think prep is different, where, everything really is like this, because you don't have room for error or room to be more flexible. But I've found like if I compared my last prep to this improvement season, it's like, in this improvement season, if I didn't get good sleep, I'm not going to sacrifice that to go get my workout in the morning. Because one, I'm not training every day, so I can afford a rest day. Or two, if I'm been cramping, okay, I'll just eat more today and then go in the evening. But in a prep, that wasn't even possible with everything required of me. So I think there's always that give and take. And like you said, the most important thing is to plan. Even if your plans change in improvement season, have the plan in place anyways. But in prep, I will say, I think that's one of the key things that's different, is a prep, there isn't really much of that room for change.
Yeah, when cardio is so high and there's only so many hours in a day,
Exactly.
you have to get it in. Yeah. Yeah. Start with the plan. And of course, when we're not in prep, we've got a little kind of flexibility in reserve that we can deploy if we need to. But the super laid back person that I am, that you can already tell that I am. Yeah. I always start with the plan. Even if that means you have to change it, at least you have somewhere from.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so important to know what works best for you. Like, I know that I'm a more so morning workout person. And if I went every day not going in the morning and just making an excuse to go later, I've got time later, it would eat at me as an athlete. I wouldn't feel like top notch. So I think part of it's also fostering the mentality that this is worth putting in your day and sticking to put it in your day. You didn't just say make a plan. You said, what was it? You said, plan the work and work the plan. Okay, so I really like that key, but I want to ask you more about the mentality behind it. Like, is this something you've always had since being an athlete in high school, or is this something you developed through competing?
I mean, I think I've always been I've always had hustle. I think I'm not quite sure I know how to answer that. I think I've always had hustle and have been fairly ambitious. Uh, so it's like one of those things, did I start competing because I kind of had this high ambition, wanted to achieve a difficult goal, or did that help shape me? I would say it's probably the first of the two, because I didn't start competing until I was 35, so I think I like a tough goal. I like it. It feels a little bit sweeter when you've had some type of obstacle that you figured out how to get around, like you skirted around it. Things like, oh, I forgot my shoes. Like, you don't throw in the towel and go home. I've like gone and bought shoes and continued my workout. I've had the power go out at a gym before. You go to the next gym. Like, it almost is like you get bragging rights to in your own mind, like, oh, I made that happen anyway. The universe said no, but I said yes, and we made it happen anyway. So I think there's something that's really rewarding about making things happen, even though it's difficult, and not using difficult as an excuse. So I think it's probably just in my DNA, and maybe that's why I gravitated towards competing, because no superiority in what we do here, but you got to be a little left of center to want to
Yeah.
compete in this sport, right? And so it's like not everybody can do it for a number of reasons, and one of them is like that, the urge to get it done and to make it happen. So
Oh, for sure. Like, I could not agree more with that. And it makes me laugh when you say you have to be a little less left of center, because it's true. And I think I've learned over the years as well is like, there are a lot of us in this sport, on the outside looking in, people might think we do it for the look, which is maybe motivating, but it's part of the factor, right? Like, we do like to strive for that, but a lot of it is also like it takes something out of us, as in like a strength of ours, and puts it to use, or a mentality of ours, and it focuses it, or maybe a pain we've experienced in the past and allows us to channel it. And I think that's a really beautiful thing about this, is we get to let it nurture parts of us, but we get to use a lot of what's maybe in our nature as like those go-getters. Now, I've also talked to people who it was definitely not in their nature and it developed, but I think you and I share that it's been in us to go after those difficult things and strive for more, which leads me to wonder if when you were growing up, or maybe even just throughout this journey in general of your life, have there been times where you have overcome something really difficult and you found it useful in the competing journey that you've been on?
I am not gonna say that I've had like massive, adversity to overcome in my life, because I know what that looks like on other people, and I can't say that I have experienced much out of like right in the fairway of like there are pockets of life that's hard for everybody, and that could mean health issues, that could mean losing loved ones, that could mean mental health issues. It could mean a lot, and I don't think I've experienced anything that's more extreme than your average bear. Honestly, I don't. So no, I think it's just, I like tough goals. I like to test myself and see what I can do and see what's possible and push the envelope. But it was not from some trauma that I, am overcoming and then applying what I learned to that experience, or applying how I overcame a trauma to competing. That's just not been my reality. Now, have I experienced very sad things in my life or things that were difficult? Absolutely. But I wouldn't put it on the Richter scale of something so extreme and like personality forming.
That makes perfect sense. I appreciate you even sharing that, because I was speaking with a client the other day and she's like, sometimes I wonder if my story is enough, because it's not like this superhero, origin story of overcoming and facing these difficulties. And I was, kind of expressing to her, it's enough to just want to do this, to do it, and to challenge yourself and to want more for yourself. And I think when we allow ourselves to accept that this is adding to our life, even with it being challenging, we get so much out of the experience. And you have not just, achieved something really great as an IFBB pro, but you're also a business professional, a wife, and a mother. So how does it look to have like Kelsie, the IFBB pro, and Kelsie, the mom, the wife, and the business professional? Like, how do those hats all come together?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I love this notion that we as humans can fully be a contradiction. Like, we can be a la carte. Like, I can have shoulder striations and really great lipstick. Like, I just love, you don't, I think of, what would a millennial say? That they're not in a box. But just that you can be this killer combo of personalities and hobbies and likes and dislikes, and it doesn't have to all theme, like it doesn't have to all match. Hence, I'm a crazy baker. I love to cook, but there's also this bikini competition thing, which those are in direct conflict with one another. And if you're like executing one well, you're either neglecting or doing poorly in another area. So that, sometimes it makes it difficult. But what does it look like? It looks like hybrid. I think it looks like humanity, in its realist form, where we get to be all kinds of things and it doesn't have to match. But again, immaculate planning. That's what it takes. And so I think in my home life, I talk to my kids about eating healthy, and we, they often eat a lot of the same foods that I'm cooking. Like, they're going to have sea bass tonight, and my son will love it. My daughter will hate it. That's just what it is, but that could be the same thing with, any food that if you offer a 6-year-old, one day they love it and the next day it's, horrendous. But, yeah, I just think it takes a lot of planning. And honestly, in my work environment, which is the architectural engineering and construction and real estate development industry, I don't talk about it a ton. I'm not promoting it, certainly, about myself, but it is this like interesting thing that gets talked about, right? And so people will go, "Oh, I heard you compete, and I had a cousin who did that, and it's so interesting." I honestly think it's provided good fodder for conversation and has made me unique in a way that, is a little bit outside of the, the normal hobby of like, I garden, or which I also do. But so I think it's I think it's definitely an interesting conversation with people who have ended up being super supportive and like intrigued by it, because it is so different, and it's something that people maybe are distantly familiar with, or they have a friend who did it, or a friend of a friend. And so it ends up being this like curiosity that people ask about a lot, but I don't tend to promote it professionally.
That's actually one of the questions I had for you, was like, do these people know that you're also this? And it sounds like it comes up naturally, but it's not something you're promoting and wearing out there on your own.
Yeah, I think our sport, or our hobby, is so visible. It's like when you're pregnant, like people know you're pregnant, they can change happening. And so when you're in prep and you're withering away and my face looks weird because I'm now older and have no collagen left, you visibly, you look different. And so I think people I've experienced that both with pregnancy and with just changing bodies, right? It almost, I think, makes people think that they're like in some way a part of the journey with you.
Yeah.
It all happening. And so they'll talk about it, they'll ask about it. So it does come up. I'm never, informing people, but it just gets shared as an interesting tidbit. And I'm not shy or ashamed, or I'll talk about anything that they want to talk about, or take their congratulations when they go, oh, I heard you did great at your show. So that's all fun and good. But yeah, it's very visible. So it's hard to escape, not having that be known, because even if they weren't aware that there was competitions that I participated in, they're seeing my body change, and it's not probably of a standard looking woman year round, right? So it's something that they know something's up. Oh, you've been working out, wow. Even if it's not a conversation about competitions, they'll bring up, oh wow, your arms are getting really cut.
Yeah. Exactly. I think it's a cool part of this sport is that we get to represent our passion, and it shows. And when people ask us about it, we get to speak positively or explain or express or even just demonstrate how it benefits our life. And when I was working in the counseling center completing my internship, I was like deep in my prep, and I remember I wore the same outfit every single day for multiple reasons we won't get into. But what I realized was that actually was helpful to hide, because a lot of the sessions were on Zoom, like hide how much leaner I was getting. You could see it in my face. But I think it was like, for some people, it was probably a good thing that they couldn't tell that I was dropping so much weight. But, in the center itself, people would see me and they're like, you look very different. And they saw me multiple times a week, as yours people see you almost every day. And it's like, okay, well, then people start talking and asking questions. But it's a cool thing because you get to share. And for me, it allowed me to inform the other counselors about the bodybuilding lifestyle and give them a fresh look at it that they didn't ever see before. Like, their belief maybe that it's disordered got to be challenged by the way that I lived it. And I think you personally, you live a more flexible approach. You said leading into your show, you start following a meal plan, which even that is just about intention. So I want to hear a little bit more about how you approach your love for things like the baking or the making of macro-friendly meals while being a competitor, and how that's actually maybe supported your longevity.
Yeah, it for sure has supported my longevity to be able to. I'm a cook, right? So my family, when I grew up, we had a massive garden, we had fruit trees, and we cooked. My both of my parents, and my dad really is who taught me how to cook. And so to us, it's a love language. Cooking for each other is a love language. And so if that were removed from something that I was able to express, it wouldn't be sustainable for me. So the fact that I have decided to operate my prep the majority of the way using macros allows me to be expressive still. And when food is higher at the beginning of prep, I can still cook one thing for my whole family. We're all eating the same thing, but I'm making flexible adjustments and being flexible to make it fit my goals. And it is one of the most like fulfilling things for me when I find some like tweak or way to make a traditional dish or something that's super duper yummy, but like make it a lot healthier. And I call it the I'd eat this anyway type of recipe. Like anyway, like even though it fits my macros or even though it's healthier, I love that. That's so rewarding. And I usually brag about it for like a week. I'm like, oh, I made I used flank steak instead of brisket on this thing. And that's just super exciting for me. So again, it's like a challenge. And with macros particularly, my mind views them as like a puzzle, right? I have this many macros to hit and I can eat whatever I want, right? So how do I pull levers and how do I adjust? And oh no, I went over on my fats. So then what do I have to do to my proteins and doing all of those? It's like a puzzle every day. It's like people do Sudoku. I do macros. So I use my Fitness Pal, and yeah, I get to be creative, and I do end up repeating a lot of the same recipes that I end up liking. And I think enjoying, this is going to be right in your wheelhouse, right? Enjoying the foods that you eat is important because, you know, I believe food is more than just nourishment, right? I think it's our part of our culture, it's expression. For my family, it's a love language. So being able to do that gets me a little bit of both worlds. With the baking, I bake and give it away. I mean, I freeze a lot, and my kids eat it. My husband eats it. I actually, when I lead meetings at work, I will bake something, bring it to kind of like lure or bribe my coworkers to come in person, and then I tell the history of the recipe that I've made. So if it's like, you know, the history of the chocolate chip cookie or the history of crumble bars, like I'll share, hey, crumble bars came about in World War II when pastry ingredients were hard to come by, and it was a economical alternative to pie crust. So it was easier to get those ingredients, and it was cheaper to make. So I'll talk about like a little history lesson, and that has nothing at all to do with the meeting.
But it's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, like an icebreaker, way to engage people. And I've also found a sneaky way to combine my profession with my hobby, and I get to call it like part work because it's my thing. It's what I do. So
oh, that's so cool. I could just tell you're so passionate about that as well. And I think that's a special thing. And I like how you brought in the fact that food isn't just fuel. You're right. That is in my wheelhouse, in that I don't appreciate that message too much. I think it is fuel, right? And how we fuel ourselves matters. But there's so much more to it. And I appreciate your perspective that you're saying, as an athlete, as a mom, as a wife, as a business professional, food has shown up in these ways. And it's more than just getting me on stage. And that's actually supported your enjoyment of it, which, if I don't ask you this, I might, I personally, if I was listening and I didn't ask this, I would have a pitchfork ready to go. So I gotta ask you, like, what some of your favorite, like, macro friendly or go-to meals are, maybe when calories are low and maybe a couple when calories are higher.
Yeah, I think so when calories are low, I really like non-fat plain Greek yogurt mixed with sugar-free pudding mix. There's all different flavors. There's cheesecake, vanilla, girl, there's chocolate, there's pistachio. Stop me now. And then you could put diced berries on there, crushed nuts. If calories are higher, you might do like the cheesecake one with some mashed raspberries and some graham cracker crumbs and pretend it's a cheesecake. So, there's like dials you can turn up and down, and you're like, oh, calories are going down. There goes the graham crackers on my yogurt. You can still similar things and still make them yummy. I also make a crustless quiche, which I use chicken sausage, sauteed mushrooms, garlic, spinach, onions, put that in the pot in the bottom of a sprayed pie dish, and then pour egg whites mixed with 1 or 2 eggs over the top. And then you can even top it with fat-free feta, which is just like pure protein, salty, delicious. And it's going to be mostly a protein meal, fairly low fat, fairly low carb, and you put salsa on top of that and plain non-fat Greek yogurt instead of a sour cream, and that's amazing. So when calories are higher, I also like to make oat flour based breads. And so you can buy oat flour, but I just grind the living bejesus out of it in a food processor, and then make it with Greek yogurt and eggs and any kind of extract. Maybe you do vanilla poppy seed, maybe you do an almond version, maybe you do a maple cinnamon version. Get me in the fall, and that's what I'm going to be up to. But yeah, there's just the internet is our friend in this way. There's a limitless amount of creativity. There's no excuse for not being creative in the kitchen. Like if you're craving something, we can figure that out. So that's fun to me. It's like, I really want carrot cake. How do I turn that into a protein muffin?
Yeah.
So it's a fun challenge.
I love that. I think it's awesome that we can do that in this lifestyle, because I think the fitness industry has overcomplicated nutrition in many ways and making it seem as though you can't enjoy foods and achieve your goals. Now that narrative has changed quite a bit over the years, but because so many people, I think, were scarred by the fad diets, a lot of our, I don't like the word older, but higher generations, wiser generations are maybe thinking differently. Like they think there's no way you're eating a muffin and looking like that, but it's true that you can. And I think it's awesome that you're sharing that perspective, because even me coming up in the industry, like I was under that impression because there wasn't a lot of macro talk. There was like in 2015, I don't know of one bikini competitor. And hey, if you guys are listening and you know of someone who is doing it already, like I don't remember one person ever posting about macros until like a couple years in. And that could have been exposure wise for me, but it was so much more about meal plans and strict diets and bro diets. So
Yeah.
it's cool to hear how you've made it so enjoyable.
You're spot on. Last season, I was eating a turkey bagel sandwich, like a mini bagel, one of the little baby bagels. And a coworker was like, I thought aren't you on a diet? Because I was eating bread.
Right.
So yeah, and asked me how many grams of carbs are in this bagel, because I could tell you, people
Exactly.
don't know, they think, oh, bread, there's certain food groups that are the enemy or whatever. And, I think, do I cook in the most optimal, like perfectly healthy? No. If that were the case, there'd be no aspartame in my house. And God knows that's not true. So I don't think it's about being perfect. I just think it's about being a lot better and doing something that you can maintain consistently, right? So if putting sugar-free pudding mix in my yogurt is what's blowing my skirt up during prep, then I'm going to do it because it keeps me on, right? And I think like finding those things that you can do that are again, help you scale and help you stick with it, because consistency is the thing that wins over time. It's not being perfect for 4 days and then falling off the wagon and having to get back on the wagon and that whole mess that's really difficult to navigate. I think it's, no, probably if I were being perfectly healthy, I wouldn't use chicken sausage, but I do because it's delicious and it, is better than pork sausage, and I'm going for better, not perfect. So I think I give myself a little leniency in my diet too. So there are some sins in it, but I don't care,
Yeah.
So,
I think that's so important. Like we can't, if we look at, oh, it's this meal plan or it's this macros or it's this food and it's that food that got this person there, we're missing the point. The point is the effort, the consistency, the diligence, the commitment to be better. It's not what they did, it's how they did it. It's how was this executed that's ultimately going to lead you to see why someone is where they are at. Because if you only looked at what they do, then you're going to assume you're going to be exactly as they are, achieve the exact same thing. It's not like that. It's for you, it could take 5 years. For someone else, it could take 1 year. But at the end of the day, the similar variables are the consistency and the dedication.
Right. Well said. I agree.
So I want to hear more about your husband and your kids, because I think that it's cool. You said you teach your kiddos how to eat healthy, nourish themselves, how they can enjoy these things too. How else have you seen this lifestyle maybe influence or impact your kids?
Oh, I see it show up in how my kids compliment me, actually. And so it's really interesting because I have a boy and a girl, and I've read about the differences in how we just naturally parent males versus females, and how people of authority like teachers interact with male students versus female students, how we talk to them, what we highlight about them, what we admit we notice about them. With boys, we say things like, oh, you're so strong, you're so brave, you're so smart. With girls, we say, you're so cute, you're so pretty, you're so sweet. And so I think it is just cultural, like it is everywhere in how they're marketed to, with toys, with activities, again, how we parent. And so I am certainly far from a perfect parent, but I do feel proud when my 6-year-old daughter, who's going into first grade, and loves me more than like I've ever been loved by anyone in this life and ever will. Like she is such a girl's girl. She really is. But she'll tell me, Mom, you are so strong and you are so healthy and you are so smart. And then very somewhere along the line will be like, and you're pretty, but it's not the first thing. And I love that. That to me is a marker that I'm getting through to her. And a lot of that comes from, I'll redirect, if she'll say she likes someone or me or something because it's beautiful, I'll go, yeah, but are they funny? Like, are they kind? Do they make you, do you have a good time when you're with them? And so I'll redirect to what does it mean to be a quality human? And so that makes me really proud. My son, very athletic and does all of the sports and things. And he asks how many grams of protein is in whatever, and that's a delicate dance because I don't want them to be too aware or concerned with what they're eating. I think I tell them my job as a mom is to give you healthy food. Your job is to eat it. That's it. Those are our roles. Okay. I'll do my part. You do yours. he does pay attention. How many grams of protein is this or that? And so I'm not claiming to, have it figured out, or think that I've got it nailed. That's something that I'm very aware of. And I am constantly trying to find out where is the line between building awareness and an appreciation for what healthy food does to our bodies, but not creating this complex around it or fear or anything that they don't need to have as small children. So that's tricky. That's tricky. And it is, I will tell you, of any of this, probably one of my bigger concerns around my hobby being exposed to them is just this hyper awareness of food. They see me weighing things. They see me eating differently than them. If we're having a vegetable and a lean meat and they have noodles, but I've given myself berries, sometimes they'll ask, Mom, how come you're not having noodles? And I'll say, oh, strawberries just sounded better to me. I lie. But,
yeah, that's smart.
And it'll evolve too as they get older. They've never been to one of my competitions before. Again, they're 6 and a fresh 9. So that is, I don't think the context can be understood or appreciated enough for me to feel comfortable bringing them to a competition and them seeing the stage presentations and all of that. So that's something that I've chosen not to bring them to yet, but they see, the majority of competing, that 99.9% of competing is everything else that happens in your life. And it's going to your workouts and it's getting your sleep and it's, being intentional with food. And they see all of that. So I know it'll change over time and I'll have to continue to figure it out because it evolves.
What great perspectives. And it's so cool to hear how you're approaching it and how it's even shifting or maybe shaping your own frame of mind and how you talk about yourself or how you talk about what you're doing. Felt tears well up when you're talking about your daughter and how much she just admires you and hypes you up. I think that's just so cool and amazing. And obviously you inspire your kids. And I think that that's such a positive impact that you could be making and showing them, you're going after this dream and living this lifestyle and your mom is happy doing it, which I think is really, really special. And I love that you brought up the difference between, how boys and girls are raised or treated. I remember in school being offended when the teacher would only ask the boys for help putting the chairs and desks away at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Excuse me, like, yeah. I want to do that too, but I think it starts at home, and the fact that you're at least teaching them and instilling that in your kids is so cool. And I know you've posted too about your husband and his support. So what does it look like to have your husband helping out? I mean, your kids are old enough to be doing their own thing as far as like hobbies or activities. So I know you've posted about him helping out there. So what does it look like to have your husband's support and involvement?
Yeah, he, and he has his own hobbies too. We're very different, which is funny. He's very outdoorsy and he likes to camp, and I don't go outside. He also he does CrossFit. So he really is, his orientation around health is more holistic health. And so it's mental, physical, spiritual, our balance with the earth. Like he's a little woo-woo that way, which I totally appreciate. I'm like pudding mix. So he has his own hobbies too. And our relationship, the dynamic of our relationship is, I would say it's a little different than I think is what's very, very common, in that we do have no codependency. Even though we've been married 11 years, we have 2 kids, we're not codependent. We are very much individuals who are in a marriage running a life together, and we have independent hobbies and interests. And our job as a husband and as a wife is to enable that for the other person. So how can I help you be able to go do that 2-week-long motorcycle trip through Montana that you like to do every summer? Like, how can I make that happen for you? It has nothing to do with me. It's certainly not going. And it's, in fact, it's going to make my life a little more difficult because I still work and have kids and whatever. But it's about the balance between, bringing your independent individual selves into a relationship and then helping each other with that. It's not about we have to do everything together. So he pulls a ton of weight when it gets to the point where it's kind of crunch time and prep, and you're tired, and I don't really want to clean the bathrooms, and your workouts, your time in the gym is getting longer because your cardio is getting longer, and you're just kind of dragging in between sets. And, there's a lot of cooking that happens because you're making all your foods, and meal prep is like a part-time job on its own. He has just always stepped up and has never said like, hey, it's really taking a lot of time and I'm going to need you to do, more of this or less of that. That's never come up, but I think the foundation of our relationship is really bringing our individual selves into a partnership and then helping make it happen for the other person. And I do that for him as well. We'll go out of my way to make sure he can get to his CrossFit, or go out of my way to make sure he can do the camping trip or the hike or the whatever. So I think it's just give and take, and it's not always going to be convenient. And that doesn't mean you stop. That just means you find a way and make sure that it balances, and that you're not just a taker and letting someone else make your life convenient, but you're invested in making their life more fulfilled with the things that are important to them, whether or not it has anything to do with you.
Wow, that's really beautiful insight right there on marriage in general and creating that type of a partnership. When you guys got together, was that already a frame of mind you had for the type of relationship you wanted, or did you guys develop that outlook together?
No, I think it's just really how it shook out. We're different enough just as humans that, organically that's probably where it was headed. But it was never a thing that we sat down and said, this is the goal, or, the ideal kind of type of partnership that we want. It's just kind of how it ended up being, and I think you pick someone who truly wants the best for you, and that's probably going to happen anyway, right? Like if someone genuinely wants the best for you, then they want to see you do the things that you think are cool and that you enjoy. And, I think he is happy to see when I'm geeking out about something related to fitness or to baking. And I, though maybe don't understand it, have an appreciation when he is thinking and talking about no-till gardening. I'm like, that's awesome. I don't know what that means. Good for you, So we have a genuine enjoyment in the other discovering and experiencing the things that are fulfilling to them.
It's a good feeling, like to love someone that way and to be loved that way is a real treasure in life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you can try and yield to someone else's gravity around their interests and their hobbies. You'll probably always come back to where your center is. I've owned a motorcycle twice and sold them because it's like, that's never going to be me. It's just not going to be me. Also, someone has to live. I voted me.
Yeah.
So I sold them.
It's so funny, dude. I love that. When I messaged Ryan, so you guys, Kelsie works with Chris, and I'm going to mess up his last name.
Melancon.
Thank you. See, you already knew where I was going with that. Who is with Team Legacy. And if you guys remember, we did a coaches series years ago now. I'm thinking of doing another one. We'll see. But Ryan Hinton from Team Legacy was on. And so I texted him because we've stayed in touch. I texted him before and was like, guess who's coming on my podcast? And told him it was Kelsie, of course. And he said, nothing but amazing things, like talking about how you're literally the blueprint for the ideal client. You have no excuse mentality. You're a great mom. You're a hard worker. He did say he said you're corny, which I thought was so funny. And that made me so much more excited. Like, all the other things aside, I'm like, yeah, I know. I figure. I mean, I see yours. But I like when he said corny, then I went into like more of the archives of your Insta. I'm like, she is corny, and I love that. And I
that checks out.
Yeah, I was like, I like this girl already. And I texted my boyfriend. I was like, he said she's corny, which makes me happy. He's like, well, that's because you're corny too. And I was like, okay.
We must stick together. You know, I think we take ourselves too seriously. Just full stop. And especially in this sport, you get the people in the gym with the bags and the wolf no sheep t-shirts on, and it's just like, come on, guys, like, you're gonna trip over that dumbbell that you just set down and act too cool to acknowledge it or whatever. I just think we all take ourselves too seriously, and it's so much more fun to just be relentlessly a human, like an actual real human, and guess what, you'll laugh a lot more. So yeah, I am totally corny. It's true.
I love that. And you know what, when you said trip over the dumbbell, I was like, my gym has so many it has so many, like, I don't know what they did, but when they
hazards.
Yeah, it's literally a minefield with, if you're gonna trip over one of the bumps on the floor. So it just looks like you're falling, because of the floor being flat, but really there's like mines everywhere you go. And every time it happens, like, I'll just laugh to myself, and that makes me laugh harder because I'm just like laughing there by myself. And
yeah.
I think you're right. Like, I will say, I've never said this before because I usually don't get very controversial, but so sorry if this offends anyone. This is how I feel. Like, my pet peeve is when people say they're going to war when they're going to the gym. I'm like, this is not, you're going on stage to do something amazing. Like, that is a blessing, as we spoke about earlier. This is close.
I can't. People already know you, and they know you're a fantastic, caring, loving human. They don't know me, and I'm just gonna sound like a judgy old lady. But yeah, no, for sure, you're not going to war. You are not a lion. You are not a wolf. Put your popcorn away. The judges have seen it before. All of that. We participate in muscle beauty competitions, and yes, they're very difficult, and it does take a lot of determination, consistency, discipline, execution. But at the end of the day, this is a first world sport. We're doing it because we have access to all the supplements, all the nutrition, the gyms, clean water, let alone your pump stimulant from, PE science or whatever. We are so fortunate to be able to do this that I cannot pretend like I'm some type of gym warrior. I just can't. Also, there's like a Disney playlist in my head at the time. So, it would be a lie. It would be a bold lie.
The Greatest Showman soundtrack got me through some of
yeah.
I'm out there doing the dance like them on the bar, like shaking hands. Oh man, I'm glad we share a sentiment, and no, I think it's gonna be well received, honestly, and I appreciate your sweet words.
I love that so much. Yeah, you don't have to be too cool, to appreciate the sport. Anyways, we can be done on that, or I'm just gonna say too.
Yeah, we'll just. I think we spoke enough on that. I do think you and my friend Holly Larson would get along so well. I don't know if you know her, but she's IFBB Bikini Pro as well. She wrote "You Might Be a Bodybuilder If." You'd probably love that book.
Oh.
Yeah, you'd probably love it. It's very quirky.
I may be a redneck, the comedian. Yeah. No, I already love it.
Yeah, so I think you guys would get along super well. She has a similar mentality, like, she's an IFBB Bikini Pro, and she doesn't take life too seriously. She's so fun. So I'll have to connect you guys. I think you guys would just have a hoot of a time together. But anyway, so let me ask you this. When you look back on your journey through like becoming an IFBB pro, you had a lot of success on your way. I mean, you even got second call outs at your first national show, placing 13th, which is awesome. I think because I've only placed 16th, which is a tie for last. But before that, you eventually went on to take an improvement season and you grew for your return in 2023. What made you go from this being a bucket list item to let's take this all the way to a national show and work for a pro card?
Yeah, I think there was always more to prove, and so I enjoyed my first prep. I did well in my first show. And again, I was 35 when I started. So by the way, I had been lifting weights for years before I wanted to diet down. And so I think that maybe probably impacted the timeline a little bit, right? Because I was already doing a lot of the building. I was already tracking macros. I was running accountability groups just within my own community of women. Like I'm not sponsored or selling anyone's programs or anything. It was just like, hey, I know I want to clean things up over the next 4 weeks. Who else wants to? And it'd be like my aunt, my cousin, and my friend and other people. And before you know it, I had 30 women, and we would all be just like, kind of joining together and holding ourselves accountable and holding each other accountable. So I was already doing a lot of this, like foundational behavior, consistently training, consistently paying attention to nutrition, having goals around nutrition. And so when I came into my first prep, it was just more of this behavior that I was already executing and ended up doing well. And I think seeing results is addictive, right? And so it's very cool to see how you can uncover this hard work that you've done, how you can transform your body, and however long your prep is, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 weeks. It's just a really cool process. And it's for people who enjoy fitness and having muscle, being able to see new lines come through. It's just really rewarding, and it's on yourself. I think the other thing that is very compelling to me that has made me stick with it beyond the bucket list, cool, I did it, that was a neat experience, is that we all say, oh, bodybuilding is so selfish, right? We say that because it's a very individual sport. But as a mom and a wife and working, it's like, I love having something that is literally about no one else. It is only about me. And the only person that determines my success is me. I am in full control of how well I execute even pick a good coach. That's also on you. Do your research and leave if they're not treating you well, or if you're not getting what you need, or if you think something is sketchy. You're literally in control of this entire process, right? And so from who you allow to guide you to how you execute on the plan that they've given you, nobody else can get in the way of that. Now, we talked about obstacles and barriers before. Those are just bonuses. Those are just bonus challenges. How can I make this happen anyway? And so I think for me, it's been refreshing to have a very intrinsic, independent focus in my life, where I'm at all of the kids' birthday parties and the PTA and driving kids around to swim class and cooking class. And there's a lot of energy that we push out, as I think as women, period, but as mothers even more so, and working mothers, that's another layer. We push a lot of energy out. So to be able to save a piece for myself, unabashed, is really fulfilling. And so I think that's probably what's kept me going, because working out to me is never so I could, to compensate for eating, or it's never because I want to look a certain way. The act of exercise to me is self-care. Like the action of weightlifting to me, I enjoy, and I get that endorphin rush. I love being there. That's my space. I put my headphones in, I'm listening to music I like. That is self-care. Some people it's yoga, some people it's walking, whatever it is. But I think that's allowed me to continue on beyond the bucket list, because of the fundamentals that it takes to execute were kind of already things I was doing. And I just frankly, I enjoy. And also, it's not about anybody else. I get to do it for me. And I'm the only person that determines how well I deliver on it.
When I earned my bachelor's degree in psychology and went on to earn my clinical mental health counseling degree and even become a national certified counselor, I knew I wanted to bridge the gap between competitors and mental health professionals. Too often, athletes are told that they can't compete and have a healthy relationship with food or their body, and I absolutely disagree with that. I have helped thousands of women globally to build more than just a body by combining psychology, personal development, mindfulness, and my signature peace through growth process. If you are struggling with the post-show blues, or you're struggling with adherence to your prep, or any aspect of your relationship with food, your body image, or overall commitment to your goals, I have tons of resources available for you over at www.celestial.fit. Things like a free food relationship coaching series, free post-show blues coaching series, a full competitor card deck with statements to use for affirmations, journal prompts to go through, and even action and behavior changes that you can implement right away. I really believe that by prioritizing the inner work and developing a healthy mindset, competitors can have a more fulfilling journey. And I know the mental side of this sport is really key to establishing longevity, ending the yo-yoing from show to show, and really establishing goals that span well beyond the stage. If you're looking for that support, head over to www.celestial.fit, where you can find tons of free resources or even apply to work with me. That perspective right there was so awesome. Like, just hearing you describe that, it put a lot in perspective for me too, because I'm thinking, it is interesting how often it gets put out there that bodybuilding is selfish. For one, like, I think we do need a lot of people's support in it at times. It's just to make it work, like what we talked about earlier. But also that perspective right there of, no, it actually adds to your life because it's yours. It's something that makes you feel good, a part of your day that nothing else can touch it or affect it because it's yours. And I think that, like you said earlier, it's not a phone call from school saying someone's vomiting. It's you in the gym crushing it because that's your moment. And then you also had really good advice, which was hire a good coach. And it is not often that the first coach someone hires ends up being their coach. So what was the research you did to find your coach, and what led you to eventually make that decision to hire him?
Yeah, I had there was someone that I worked with who had competed in the past, and his wife had just finished a bikini competition. I did not know, I had never met her before, but I said, can I talk to your wife? And we got on the phone, and I grilled her about what was your experience like? Because I do a lot of research, I think, before I get into something. And so if you've done your due diligence, then right? And so before I decided, yes, I'm going to compete, I talked to this woman who now I'm very good friends with.
Aww.
And we just chatted about what her experience was, and teams that she knew that were associated with bikini that were legitimate groups, and Team Legacy was one. And I was looking at people online and reading endorsements by their athletes, and I talked to a couple of people and just didn't really click. But then I reached out to Chris Melancon with Team Legacy, and he was so responsive, informed. On top of it, I liked his communication style. He was quick. I'm very impatient because I'm busy. And so everything, again, I schedule my travel time to the gym. I don't have a lot of time to wait around for like long response times. And so we just really clicked. I liked his style. He's a younger coach, but he's very academic in his approach, which I appreciate because bodybuilding has evolved. The methodology and the techniques that are used in prep, how to peak somebody, like that's changed over time. I think from more dangerous techniques to less dangerous techniques with still very good results or better results. And he's the guy that's reading scholarly journals on this stuff. And so it's like, great, hire somebody who's going to nerd out about it and be a good consult to you. I'm a lifelong learner, right? So I get really interested in not just reading a plan and then delivering on it, but I want I want to learn from it and I want to understand what's behind. And he gives me a lot of why. He gives me a lot of context. I ask great questions and he gives great answers. He'll read up on things. And so we've developed now over almost 3 years, a really great partnership. And so I don't see myself, as long as he'll have me. Now he's an attorney by day. So at some point he might say, forget this mess, but as long as he'll have me, I'll stay with him. He's a phenomenal coach. And it's never, he's never once answered one of my questions, whether they were good questions or not good questions. He's never said because I said so, or because that's the plan, like never. And that would not fly with me, not for a half a second. And so, the background and the context, and he's a teacher, really. He's a guide. And so I learn a lot from him, and I appreciate that too. Not just what it takes to get me through a prep and to get to the show, but I've just learned so much, and I've added so much to my knowledge base around fitness and training and dieting that even if it was just like, even if I used him as a lifestyle coach, like I just learned so much from him. So yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. He's really compassionate too. It's prep is hard. And I think one time I literally like whined at him because he took my blueberries away a couple years ago. And he's like, it's never suck it up, or, he's very compassionate. And I think that's important when you're working with people who can be moody because they don't get blueberries anymore. So
I love that. That's a great story. Definitely an awesome testimony for him as well. And because you guys have been working together for a few years, like you could probably see the progression in your own work and approach as well. So what had to be done differently to go from 13th and open and 9th and masters 35 and up to then come back and earn your pro card like 11 months later?
Yeah. We had one thing to work on. When you get into those first and second call outs, like the margin of difference between these athletes is not huge, right? Like it narrows, it really does narrow. And so if you're second call outs, you're probably striking distance between a minimum at first call outs. Of course, it all depends on who shows up, and everybody's, you're competing. It's never a controlled experiment, right? Because you have different people that you're competing against, but the margin narrows. And so the feedback that I got after my first nationals was just get a little bit bigger all around. And so we went into an improvement season and I lifted my butt off. I mean, we share an Excel workbook and he prescribed my training, and I was bullish on progressive overload. And so every week that I was adding a rep. If I got to the top of my rep range, my prescribed rep range, then I would try and add weight, even if I had to go down a rep or two. But I'm wiggling my way up. I target a few movements a week, but I was wiggling my way up in my entire workout, my whole improvement season. I was not afraid to eat. I love eating. I was not afraid to put on body fat. In order to put on mass, you do have to eat in a surplus if you want to gain size. And so I wasn't afraid of any of that. It was my life season, and I was just enjoying it and working really, really hard to add lean muscle tissue. And then it was so cool. It was so cool to diet down then on this last prep and then see what's changed, and it's crazy, this hobby that we have, because even if the scale is the same and even measurements are the same, you can look different. And so that's kind of blows your mind a little bit. It's kind of messes with you, but it was really cool to see the difference. I think I just worked really, really hard. I was not afraid to eat. One of my favorite things I've heard is, if it ain't thick, it won't stick. Like, it's actually really hard. And I'm 38, right? So it's like my prime muscle building days are far behind me. And I'm probably not going to make a huge impact on my physique trying to stay within striking distance of my stage weight. That's just probably not going to happen. And I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid to eat, wasn't afraid to train hard. And just, I hear people talking about this a lot. The marker for your wins and, what you're um, focused on in terms of like your success in your improvement season has to change, right? We all hate seeing the lines go away. We all hate feeling like we're fluffy. I love it because I think like curvy Kelsie, lasagna and prosecco Kelsie is my favorite Kelsie because she is having fun. She's in a good mood. Okay, she feels like she looks way more feminine. She's sleeping better. She's training harder. Like I love that part of this. If it were all lean, weird skinny face Kelsie, I wouldn't like all year round. I wouldn't be able to do this. Like this is I need like respite from that. So I'm not afraid of that off-season body, and I think it's very feminine. It's very healthy and natural, and I feel more like confident in the way that I look in my off-season actually. So just not being afraid of any of that, not trying to hold on to your stage lean for too long because you're not making progress there. You're really not. Get out of a deficit, move on. Eat lasagna.
Eat lasagna. Good point. Like embracing the new body, the new lifestyle, the new face so that you can bring something better next time. And additionally, knowing that that journey is a requirement to be better. It's just you have to go through that, and you have to respect both sides of the process. You can't have one without the other. And I do hear a lot, and I struggled with this too in prep. You can have such similar body image issues as deep in your improvement season, because when you're so deep in prep, you do start looking different in the face, and sometimes your booty's not filling out the pants that you wear. Most of the times it's not, especially when you're really close. And like, yeah, if you just look different, and like you can tell sometimes people are staring at you because you're full and you're muscular, and other times because you're flat, depleted, and they're like, are you okay? So, and when I smile, it's like everything shows. Like it's just
like every bone in my face is showing right now.
Exactly. I'm like, what? And then my lips look even fuller because there's like nothing else. So
mine go away. It's like I eat all the fat off my face, including my lips, and it's sad. It's just sad.
Yeah, so I think it's just a common shared experience. Like both prep and improvement seasons are going to bring their challenges, but if you love this lifestyle, you're committed to being better. They both serve a very valuable purpose, and we have to respect that.
Agree. I love it.
So now I want to get your best advice. So what's your best advice for someone on their, actually someone who's never competed before but wants to, and then someone on their road to pro?
We all have our different flavors of this, right? I think if for someone who, so this is coming from super laid back, not type A person whatsoever, research, man, when I was just starting my first prep, I was researching, and that was like, I was watching YouTube videos of like, how do they do comparisons? How do they move people around? What's the flow of a show? Well, posing, just research, like, so you know what to expect and be prepared. And then I think you can't start posing too soon. You just can't, even though your foot placement and your angles are going to change a little bit as your body kind of comes into where it will be when you are on stage, and that final positioning and posture needs to be custom to the body that you bring to the stage. So it might change over time, but the awareness and just that acute connection to your body positioning, especially if you don't have a background in anything that has called on very acute body awareness, like gymnastics or dance or any sports where you're very, very physically aware of your own body position, and you're not comfortable in heels, like start early. You cannot start early enough. So I would research a ton, and that starts from researching coaches, researching how shows flow. YouTube is a huge repository of that kind of information. So I just don't wing it. Just don't wing it, because there's a lot there. It's more than you think. There's a lot that goes into it, and you're going to get surprised along the way, like, oh, you get a tan and now water's the enemy and you don't get to wash your hands for 24 hours. Like there's just, if the more surprises for me, if you're anything like me, the more surprises I can eliminate, the better, right? Because even if you're just mentally kind of prepared for what that experience will be like. It'll help you stay chill, like me, because you know what to expect, and then your stress is low, and you're like, oh yeah, I saw this coming. I know what to do. I've heard you can do this or do that, and you're not going to get stressed out, because people do get really wiggy. Like your sleep goes to garbage, and you're not eating a lot. You're not recovering well. It feels high stakes because stage day is the presentation of everything that you just worked for, all that hard work, all that sacrifice, that discipline, and that planning and that execution. It can feel high stakes. And so if you're not prepared for that and something silly goes south because you weren't, you didn't have your eyes open, then that could be a bummer. And then someone on the road to pro, it's consistency. It's just consistency over time. And I think at minimum training, like you're trying to make an improvement. I think people who take long periods of time off and then, maybe take time off the gym and then come back, and it felt absurd to me when I went pro, because it does feel like, or the narrative is, you kind of have to sell your soul to this thing to like make it happen. You need to be on point all the time. You need to be, it's not off season, it's improvement season. And I'm certainly not perfect, but I have always been pretty consistent at minimum with my tribe. Literally never missed a session of cardio ever. That's a lie. I got COVID once. So I did miss like 2 or 3 sessions to COVID. But outside of that, like, barring the government telling me I shouldn't be in the gym, I'm in the gym and I get my training done and I get my cardio done. So I just think being consistent over time is way better than being perfect over time. And so if you can be a A- or a B+ for a longer period of time, that's better than being an A+ for a shorter period of time. So just don't let your foot off the gas, even if that means that your B+ foot is on the gas. Just keep going in whatever capacity that you can.
That's beautiful. I really appreciate you sharing that perspective, as well as like it really ties in so much of what you shared throughout the episode from your own experiences and perspectives as well. So how can people connect with you and continue to follow your journey?
I'm not really that cool. Like I don't have TikTok and stuff like that. I know you're shocked. You're so shocked right now.
I'm really not, honestly. Like, whatever.
No, I'm on Instagram though.
Yes.
Celeste, my LinkedIn. No, I'm not. I
love it. Yes, LinkedIn.
My Instagram is at Kelsie_Woodhouse. Kelsie is KELSIE_Woodhouse. And I'm there, it's just recipes. I post macros, I post my meals and the macro composition of my meals. And so if anybody ever wanted like inspiration for meal ideas, if they're doing the macro thing, then you can always ask me how I made something. I'm waiting to talk to people about food. So, reach out, let me know. But that's where I'm at.
Sure, you're going to get a lot of reach outs after that, especially once they see your page and all the amazing things that you've posted and all the meals that you've posted.
Yes, I have several highlight reels on my page that are just like the foods that I've made. And so if someone needs to refresh their recipe book, they can scroll through those and let me know if they see anything interesting they want to know more about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll put your information on the show notes page, you guys. That's always on celestial.fit/podcast. And if you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, you may have to search for it because I'm making some transitions on my website. So it may not be a category section anymore. So I'll keep you guys in the loop on that. But with all that being said, Kelsie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I laughed a lot during this conversation. And so I'm happy to be a guest and I'm flattered and I'm just happy to meet you in person. So thank you.
Yes, me too. You is refreshing conversation and just so nice. So appreciate you so much for coming on and for us connecting. I hope we'll stay in touch. I am going to connect you with my friend once we sign off. But you guys,
I gotta know.
Yeah, you guys, like I'm telling, I hope that I'm right about that. I hope you guys find a way to connect. But yeah, you guys are so similar. It's crazy.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, me too. So hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.